We are live. This is Dr. Nancy Zier, the sales whisperer.
And Hirsch Repun, the message therapist.
And together we are here to talk about no and sell pointers. And we're continuing our conversation about branding. Any thoughts to get us started, Hirsch?
Well, we're talking today about Nancy, about personalities, and there are personalities on both sides. There's the personality that you bring to your brand, and then there's the right personalities for your brand and how you fit with them, right?
I'm so glad you said that because, personality, it isn't a one size fits all. And I think that's many times as people who are out there, peddling our goods, we think that there's got to be just one way. And if we could figure out what that one way is, that we'd have it mastered. And then, boy, the business would just come in and we wouldn't have to do anything more. My gosh, Hirsch, wouldn't that be a wonderful fantasy to come true?
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. And but we know that's not happening.
Yeah.
We know that, and I had someone say this morning, oh, I really like, talking to you about your services because there's not a lot of pressure. You don't exert a lot of pressure. And it's funny because I used to put everybody kind of in the same box. I used to break them up differently. Maybe it was by their profession or by their position, their stature. But, since we've known each other, I've taken so much interest in their personality type, and they can be in any business. But I was like, I recognized right away, so this is someone that, and they seem, like a decisive person. But I think there's still this sense of not wanting to be pushed or sold to, and that's a good fit for me because I don't like to push or sell.
Of course, that I believe is the customer, the client that we are both looking for, that person who is thoughtful and considerate. They're an action taker, but they're not someone who wants to be hyped into making a decision. The person who wants the excitement and the hype and the, urgency and the deadline is closing and so forth, that's not our ideal client. That describes what I call the number two style. And by the way, it doesn't matter, names or what you call someone, but that person who is, looking for the pressure and the urgency, guess what? They are hard to deal with once you sign them up. As a matter of fact, Hirsch, I was talking earlier today with someone else, and we were talking about that very phenomenon of the individual saying yes, very quickly saying yes, and then not following through. And that's so typical of number twos. They're excited. They say yes. They see the opportunity. And then the air goes out of the balloon. And guess what? They're inflating a new balloon somewhere else, doing something else.
Now let's talk about, we describe a lot of the people that we work with as heart-centered and mission-driven. This is something that we haven't really talked about in relation to personality types, because as we know, there's mission-driven people that are number twos, that are, go-getters, and they're doers. They're people that would like to do more, but they also want to know every single thing about the system, in which case they'd probably be an 8. They would want to know everything about how everything is going to work. Talk to us a little bit about mission-driven people, because those are people that we like to work with and that tend to gravitate toward us, but how they might differ in their personality types.
I'm so glad you raised this point because it's a great one to understand that the outward behavior itself does not indicate the style. And so let me give an example in terms of maybe something we know well, which is doctors. All of us see doctors from time to time. And of course, what do you think of as the doctor? You think of, if it's your family doctor, it's somebody who's caring and nurturing and, is obviously dealing not perhaps with the adults as well as the children. This is the person, Hirsch, that's very strong in terms of what I call the number 4 style. They're very heart-centered. But then take the surgeon, or let's take the radiologist. This is the person who's reading x-rays. They have almost no patient contact. All their contact is with other physicians. They read a report and they give their report to that physician. Hence, it's a different style. This is the person who's much more, I'm going to call number 8. They're taking that trip into information, data, statistics, learning, constantly growing in terms of their knowledge and skills, but not necessarily in terms of communication with others. Big difference, and yet both are mission driven. They're both trying to accomplish the mission of good health.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And in terms of matches of personalities, there's also moods versus personalities or styles. And can the mood, let's say, or even the climate in society bring out or underscore our natural, personality types and styles?
That's an interesting point you raise, and I'm wondering if it's not related to what I think we may have discussed last time, which is culture. The fact that different cultures encourage different styles. And so would you explain a little bit more about what you mean by mood? Because obviously it's a variable. It's not something that's static, correct?
Yeah. Well, let's focus on, for practical purposes, how things are in a certain industry. So let's say we're using as an example the film production industry, which was going through a period of strikes, or the hotel industry, which was struggling during COVID, right? How do we take our cues from that to kind of counter it, or go, here's an example that may also elucidate a little bit. It's like they say that in times of war and depression, in a way, people sometimes want to see films that in some way mirrors their experience, so they're not alone. Sometimes they want escapist films, but sometimes the film should represent what the society is going through so that they feel less alone.
Yeah. So what you're raising then is, how do we modify our brand, our message, to suit the times? And like you said, there are different periods, and perhaps, whether it's a pandemic that is impacting the world, or maybe it's just a local situation taking place, we need to respond to it in a sensitive way. For those of us, again, who are perhaps more driven by what I call the number 4 style, people who are more heart-centered and more interested and sensitive to other people, then clearly this is going to be a deciding factor in what they want to say, because they want to show empathy for the current situation, what's going on currently, but at the same time to help people manage and work through and still go forward. If I may, let me give an example of actually what happened during COVID for me. And I had a number of clients starting January of 2020. I had a lot of clients. I had a group counseling program, a coaching program, and things seemed to be going really well. COVID happened in mid-March, and all of a sudden people got very frightened. And what I discovered is that, and maybe this happened to you as well, Hirsch, people pulled back from the marketing and from these kinds of what they thought of as luxury or extracurricular activities. And I personally felt that it was in the best interest of my clients to continue to sharpen the saw. And I'm sure you understand that message about the fact that we have to be prepared for when the time changes. Hence, if you pull back and you stop pumping the water, well, the water initially continues, but then guess what? It stops. And then it takes twice as much effort to get the water to come back.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I had, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I had a lot of these discussions with clients where at the time I was working with brands more than individuals. So you had a very different, more corporate uh, complexion to these things. And for example, so let's say you had a brand that wanted to do a summer campaign. Well, summer campaigns start way in advance of summer. You know, back to school campaigns go into effect way before school starts. And here you have people who are not going on vacation, who are out of school, and you're trying to figure out, well, should we plan a campaign that, you know, that assumes that we'll have a vaccine, or we'll have, or things will be better? And my advice at the time was simplify the campaigns but accelerate the timeline, so that you're putting stuff out, you're not pulling away, you're not withdrawing, you're putting out timely stuff on a timely basis, almost throwing away the idea of the long lead schedule, because we honestly don't know. We can't predict. And their initial their cost consultants were telling them, just pull back altogether, because you don't know anything, and we don't want to say the wrong thing, and we don't want to spend money on a campaign. And I was like, look, you can do that, but I suggest spending less money on more content, on more mini campaigns that are very of the moment. And you know, and you saw some of the major advertisers doing that. And of course, then we had a little bit of the overflow of the we're all in this together thing. And when you see Amazon and whatever, whoever it might be, you know, we're all in this together, there's a certain amount of dubiousness. So I had told them, don't be super serious about your message. Stick to what you know. You know, if you're selling ice cream, or if you're selling shoes, it doesn't, you know, stick to what you know, and just put your message out there, but keep it facile, keep it ready to evolve. And it's exactly like you said, Nancy, keep your saw sharpened, because you don't want to just disappear and then have to reintroduce yourself. That's a bigger thing to do, to go away and then come back. We're back. We're here.
Yeah.
You know?
So what you raised, Hirsch, and I just want to comment on it, is the fact that we do need to maintain our presence and our brand. However, the words we use, and each style is associated with a group of words of values. It's not so much the words as the values, the concepts. And there are words that express those concepts. And so for the number 4 individual, those concepts have to do with working together, connection, relationships, friends, you know, a bond. It's all about doing good for the world. And hence, no matter what the mood might be, if you continue to use the right messaging, which will be on brand, then you're going to be successful.
And that adds to our shared notion. You know, we say the better you know yourself, the better you know your customer, the easier it is to sell. And it's also, in this case, the better you know yourself and your customer and the environment around you and the climate in which you're all 3 of you essentially operating, in which everybody's operating, not only the easier it is to sell, but the more genuine the connection, and you know, the more likely your sale is.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I found this discussion to extremely lively, provocative, stimulating. Think about your own brand, and if you're curious to know what your brand says about you, or maybe you need a makeover in your brand, perhaps you're wondering whether you are messaging correctly. Well, guess what? No and Sell Pointers. We are both available to help you look at that. We will provide consultation at no cost to you initially, just to go over and review and audit what you already have.
Yeah, we're always happy to. As you can see, these subjects are of never-ending interest to us both, and from either side, from the messaging side and the sales side. We're always happy to field new questions. You can drop questions in. You can reach out to us, and soon you'll be able to join our community.
That's right. We will be talking about that in the coming weeks. So this was a great session, Hirsch. This is the Sales Whisperer saying to your sales success,
And this is Hirsch Rapun, the message therapist, wishing you a really exciting and fulfilling week.
to your sales